Management roles and skills, there are three main ones: interpersonal, how well you interact with others, as well as how effectively you interact with others. There are informational roles, collecting and sharing information, decision roles, deciding things, and one of the things under decisional roles is a disturbance handler. And so that really is, there's a crisis or some significant problem with your organization, and how do you handle it and navigate through to a more positive outcome. Of course, here they are again. And of course, resolving conflict between two subordinates might also fall under a disturbance handler. Basic management skills: technical, human relations, and conceptual skills. Now here's the question: do all managers have to think in the abstract? And the answer to that is no. Obviously, in many cases it's better, but there are certain management levels that do not necessarily require that level of thinking. It may be a much more concrete type of approach to doing their job. Some basic management skills, as well as decision making and time management skills. But here's the question: what might be poor time management skills in a manager? And we'll actually touch upon this later, but things like checking emails, spending too much time socializing with other people in the organization, and there's a whole slew of other things that we'll touch on in a little bit. Leading causes: paperwork. And it's not that paperwork is bad, but sometimes there is paperwork just for the sake of paperwork. And so occasionally you have to say to yourself, is this really necessary? And if it's not necessary, you should go about eliminating it. Of course, telephone calls. And if it's with your customer or suppliers, it's probably not bad. But if it involves non-productive, non-work related calls, that could be a time waster. Meetings. Sometimes meetings are, especially if they are poorly ran. You may come out of a meeting that lasts an hour and a half, and you may say to yourself, we could have resolved this issue in 10 minutes. It just drug on and on and on. Of course, emails. And again, emails would probably be more in terms of maybe more of a personal nature. And I should point out before I jump to this next slide is another, of course, issue is the talking among subordinates and just socializing, having a good time. Not necessarily bad, but sometimes it's also not productive. Global management skills and management and technology skills. Those are how those are defined. With strategic management, there is setting goals and formulating or creating strategy. So within strategic management, it talks about the process of helping an organization maintain an effective alignment with its environment. And you say, what in the world is an effective alignment with its environment about? Well, it really says this is where our organization is situated within this business environment, not necessarily the physical world environment, but just the business environment. And how well is our organization sitting or poised within that environment? Are we doing what we need to do to be effective in working with these customers and those customers and other stakeholders in our business? Setting business goals. Where is your business going? You know, what are the things that we hope to accomplish so that we have some measure of whether or not we accomplished it at some point in time. So purposes of goal setting provides direction and guidance for all managers, and just make sure that we're all on the same page, that we all are hopefully working towards the same goals, because you don't want one manager working towards this goal, which may be in direct conflict with another goal of another manager. So by having common goals, hopefully we're all working towards those same goals. Helps firms allocate resources. And so we say, well, here's our goal. So we need to shift people from this area to this area because the people in that old area are not really working towards our new goals. So we're going to transfer these people over to a project that's going to more closely align with our current goals. You also might divert capital resources as well. Number 3, helps to define corporate culture. Let's say, for example, that your business goal is to be a leader in making solar panels. Well, since it's kind of a clean energy type of business, your corporate culture may focus on not only making those solar panels, but trying to be very environmentally responsible in keeping in line with the goal of providing clean energy. Kinds of goals, you have a mission statement. This is the mission of what we're doing. There's also long-term goals, typically 5 years or more in the future. This is the, let's not focus on just today, tomorrow, or even next year. Is what do we look like in 5 years? And those oftentimes are long-term goals. Intermediate goals are goals that hopefully will help us to achieve our long-term goal, typically 1 to 5 years in the future. Of course, short-term goals are today, next week, even by the end of the year. Still, those could be short-term goals. Types of strategy. Corporate strategy is oftentimes top-level strategizing, and that kind of defines where they're going as an entire organization. This is the strategy that we are adopting. Now, the business strategy, let's say you have General Motors as a corporate. The business might be Chevrolet. And so they look at what the corporate strategy is, and they develop strategies to help support the corporate strategy. And then functional strategies may be within a particular department of, let's say, Chevrolet. And they develop strategies that align with the business strategy, which of course aligns with the corporate strategy. See how this all kind of plays out. And so the difference between a goal and a strategy is the goal is really what you want to achieve. The strategy is more or less the steps in trying to achieve that goal. And here's just a different depiction of how the strategies all kind of interrelate. There's ways of formulating strategies. And one of the ways that they talk about is a SWOT analysis, not a SWAT, a SWOT, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. In looking at the strategic goals, if your goal is to get an A in the class, what might be your strategy? Of course, would be to study, make sure you get your assignments done on time, read the material, whatever. Okay, but that's a strategy. The goal is to get a good grade in class. The strategy is the steps you're going to take to get or attain that particular goal. So with formulating strategy, you have SWOT. SWOT is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So from a strengths standpoint, you talk about, as an organization, what are you good at? You may be really good about bringing products to market in a very quick manner. Weaknesses, you may have poor quality products. Opportunities, you may say, you know what? With our strengths and factoring in our weaknesses, here are some opportunities in the business world that we can pursue. And of course, threats could be this other competitor may be trying to take our business away from us. So you're looking at it from hopefully these 4 angles. What are we good and bad at? Based on our good and bad, where are there opportunities as well as threats? Just a reiteration of what I just said. Environmental analysis, scanning the business environment, not necessarily the ecological environmental side of it, but just look at the business environment, the the customers, the competitors, the government regulations, all of those pieces. Of course, organizational analysis is much more of an internal look at firms' strengths and weaknesses. A strategic plan, again, is really just general direction. Tactical is much more specific, but it still hopefully aligns with our strategic plan. Of course, operational plan is much more short term, but it supports the tactical plan, which in turn supports the strategic plan. So what is your strategic, tactical, and operation plan for getting an A in this course? Well, your strategic plan is to make sure you try to maximize all of your points by paying attention to deadlines. Your tactical plan might be, this is what I'm going to do for the assignments, and this is what I'm going to do for the quizzes. And your operational plan may be, for each quiz, I'm going to focus on this, and I'm also going to focus on this for the second quiz, and then for the assignments, I'm going to focus on this for this assignment, this for this assignment, and so that's how it all kind of breaks down. You have contingency planning and crisis management. So contingency planning really is planning in case something unexpected happens. So let's say you live in Chicago and you're planning on going home for the weekend. Your plan for getting home is to drive your car. Okay, what is your contingency plan? That would be, if my car won't start, or the tires are bad, or some other reason the car is not going to get me home, you may say, well, I'm going to take the train. That's my contingency plan. Of course, crisis management, dealing with emergencies. And there is a picture, pretty picture. Corporate culture. Describe the corporate culture of one of your employers. Well, I would say it's very interesting. I worked for one company. It was in Georgia, and their corporate culture was that people needed to be at work by 8 o'clock and did not leave until 5 p.m. So the culture was you were there. You're supposed to be there, and that was the culture. Obviously, there's other pieces of the culture, but that's just one element of it. And so that could be a piece of the corporate culture. Communicating change. There's 3 stages of change. Again, you can review this, and that concludes our presentation.